When first entering My Bestsellers bookstore, you'll notice an overwhelming collection of many books, magazines, and articles that comprise much of the store itself. Among many of the book catalogs you can find and examine, there is one in particular that indirectly references the actor Norman Reedus. You can find this on the bookshelves of the title, College. Upon closer inspection, you can find that Norman Reedus is accompanied by two other people on the magazine cover. The origin of this picture comes from the film Gossip. Interestingly, Norman Reedus would happen to make two more appearances in the Silent Hill series. His second appearance would see him used as a model for reference when creating the protagonist, Travis Grady. The likeliness of Norman Reedus was initially used as a stand-in until it would be later scrapped and finalized with a finished Travis Grady. The third and last appearance that we see of Norman Reedus is in the post-credits scene of Hideo Kojima's cancelled Silent Hills from 2014. This was unlocked upon completing the demo for PT, which shows Norman Reedus, dubbed as the unplayable protagonist, walking around the foggy town of Silent Hill. Upon exploring the Central Square shopping center, you'll find yourself in the hallways of the mall. While here, there is a reference to Silent Hill 2 with a poster that you can find on the wall. This poster comes from the Silent Hill 2 navigation file, one of the many official guides in an ongoing series that is part of the Konami official guide series, made only in Japan. After Heather is first introduced to one of the enemies in the game, the Closer, and using the handgun to kill it, Heather can find a body close by where the Closer was feeding on it. There lies the corpse of an unknown woman. However, if we take a look at the files and inspect the character model, we could see this is actually a repurposed and retextured character model of Angela Orosco from Silent Hill 2. The facial features and appearance are very similar when compared side by side. However, the hair is shorter and the clothing is different. Angela's character model makes another appearance earlier on in the opening cutscene with Heather awakening after a nightmare she had in Happy Burger. It's very brief and easy to miss, but she is seen only from the back of the character model at the front entrance. Angela's head can also be found in the game files. In the woman's bathroom that Heather enters after fleeing from Douglas Cartlin, she has the option to knock on the closed bathroom stalls, which responds with a knock on the opposite side, indicating it's occupied by someone. Later on, in the other world of Central Square Shopping Center, you can once again find the same woman's bathroom. Here, you have the option to knock on the stall with someone inside, who sees them responding by knocking back at Heather. As Heather leaves the stall door ominously opens, revealing a massive pool of blood in the toilet and around the stall itself. The purpose of the blood is to connect to the theme of womanhood, a theme that is meant to manifest into a fear that is personified by the influence of Silent Hill's psychological and mystical power, projected from Heather's fears of being a woman. A very intricate detail that is seen throughout the story through blood, pregnancy, stalking, and birth as one of these central themes. While in the same woman's bathroom in the Otherworld Central Square Shopping Center, Heather has the option to interact with a toilet upon noticing that something is stuck inside. If you decide to interact with the toilet, you'll get a cutscene that shows Heather hesitating to stick her hand in the toilet until she breaks and comments in disgust.
Oh, forget it. This is way too gross. Who would even think of doing something so disgusting?
This is actually a reference to Silent Hill 2, where you can similarly do the same action as James Sunderland. However, as opposed to Heather, James fully commits in his action to sticking his hand in the toilet without hesitation. In the Otherworld Central Square Shopping Center, you can find multiple Closer enemies roaming around the floors of the mall. Typically, the Closers have very slow attack animations and walking animations that make it very easy to combat or avoid when encountered. However, if we take a look at the game files, the Closer was supposed to have a climbing animation that was later unused. The purpose of this climbing animation is unknown for what intent it would serve, but it can be speculated that this climbing animation would have been used in the sections of the mall where they can climb from the floor beneath the floor Heather is currently on and climb to her position. If you were to leave Heather idling for a long time, she can have a unique and rare animation of her crouching down and sighing in exhaustion. In the subway, you can find a newspaper that you can interact with. When reading the newspaper article, it details a disturbing story of a 40-year-old man who either committed the act of unaliving himself or accidentally fell into the train tracks, where he was brutally murdered by an oncoming train that instantly decapitated him. After reading the newspaper article and walking down a flight of stairs, Heather can find another newspaper that details an article on spirits and paranormal activities. It warns Heather that if a person is unexpectedly killed or commits the act of unaliving themselves, it will result in the person repetitively reliving the moment of their death, resulting in the spirit acting out in hostility amongst the living. When Heather gets to the subway platform, and if the player has read both articles prior, you'll get a secret cutscene of the vengeful spirit pushing Heather off the platform, with the sounds of an oncoming train, resulting in Heather quickly climbing back up the platform. Before entering the subway turnstile, if you look into the concession stand, you can find 2 picture frames of the scene from Silent Hill 2, where James first encounters the lying figure, as well as the wooden plank and the radio, to attack and kill it in the underpass. When you are in the sewer, if you were to play on Extra New Game and have your standard pipe in your inventory, head to the edge of the platform and throw the pipe into the water. Doing this will then activate an interaction with a fairy who asks Heather to answer 3 questions truthfully. If answered successfully, the fairy will give you both the silver and gold pipe as weapons, along with your standard pipe given back to you. Admittedly, the silver and gold pipe, while aesthetically pleasing, doesn't serve much of a different purpose in terms of gameplay mechanics. Both pipe variants unfortunately don't enhance damage or change gameplay much, as they function the same as the standard pipe. At the construction site on the top floor, Heather can find a discolored wall that is noticeably different than the rest of the environment, hinting that it's potentially an interactable object. Furthermore, if you have a melee weapon equipped and attack the wall, it will become debris and reveal a silencer and a deceased body in the walls with its legs revealed. If you interact with the corpse, Heather comments on how the legs remind her of the American writer and poet Edgar Allan Poe's short story, The Black Cat. In the short story, an unnamed protagonist accidentally kills his wife and hides her corpse inside the wall. What's interesting about this secret, however, is that it's intended to be an Easter egg to Metal Gear Solid, specifically Solid Snake. According to a Brady Games strategy guide on Silent Hill 3, there's a chapter that covers the Hilltop Center. This chapter briefly covers the construction site and how one of the unlockable secrets is the silencer. The description then switches to trivia on how the corpse inside the wall is supposed to be Solid Snake, the main protagonist of the Metal Gear Solid series. In the Hilltop Center, there is a storeroom that is filled with female mannequins and female mannequin parts. While here, Heather can interact with the propped female mannequin at the back of the storeroom. If Heather were to walk further to the opposite end of the storeroom, she would hear a sudden scream that sounds very similar to hers. Interestingly, an alternate variation of this scream can be heard in the Silent Hill HD collection, specifically on the remastered version of Silent Hill 3, which sounds different compared to the other scream we heard previously. While exploring the Hilltop Center, you can find a familiar looking image of a red square that is in front of the gallery. The red square is previously seen in Silent Hill 2 and is used as a gameplay mechanic that allows James Sunderland to save his progress wherever these red squares become available. Interestingly, the red squares were previously seen as a visual metaphor that literally and figuratively allowed the user to see a reflection of themselves that reveals their internal psyche, such as memories, fears, weaknesses, and the truth. This can be loosely connected to Heather Mason, which similarly has a gameplay mechanic that allows Heather to save at the Halo of the Sun symbols, which are used as save points throughout the story. Earlier on, there's a Halo of the Sun in the woman's bathroom that resides next to a mirror. If Heather interacts with the mirror, she comments on how she has an irrational fear of mirrors. In the Otherworld Hilltop Center, there is a room where you need to acquire the pork liver. While in this room, you can also find an enemy called the Insane Cancer. If you were to have the Princess Heart costume unlocked and equipped, enter the room with the Insane Cancer inside, to then abruptly and randomly hear the Insane Cancer speak Japanese while attacking Heather. Interestingly, Heather also speaks Japanese when she is attacked, or when she has them all equipped and attacks the Insane Cancer.
いいですからね。おいな。おいな。
Before entering Heather's apartment, if you were to interact with the mailbox at the front of the apartment complex, Heather can make a comment that states, "There's no letter, from a dead wife or otherwise. Well, I don't have one of those anyway. This is a reference to Mary Shepard Sunderland from Silent Hill 2, the late wife of James Sunderland. More specifically, the letter that James gets from his wife, which tells him to head to Silent Hill to search and find her in their special place. After the revelation of witnessing Harry Mason, the father of Heather Mason, was found deceased on their couch by Heather, you can get a glimpse of Harry's character model. If we were to extract Harry's character model and inspect it closely, we can make the similarities to that of James Sunderland's character model. James's character model would be repurposed for Harry's character model, albeit retextured and remodeled specifically to pay attention to detail to Harry's attire. Interestingly, Harry's position and how he is lying deceased on the couch is very similar to the position of the corpse James finds in one of the rooms of Woodside Apartments. While Heather and Douglas are driving to Silent Hill, Douglas reminisces about his time at Silent Hill, recalling an investigation he was previously working on, specifically a missing persons case, mentioning that he never did, quote, find him.
Once, on a missing persons case. Never did find him. But I'll tell you, that's one screwed up town. My line of work, you hear a lot of nasty rumors.
It's alluded to that this mail could be referencing James Sunderland, as in the ending of Silent Hill 2, at least in all 6 endings, are meant to be left ambiguous and up to the player's interpretation of what happens to James afterward. As Heather and Douglas arrive in Silent Hill, Heather can briefly explore West South Vale with the option to enter a familiar location called Heaven's Night, a brief location James and Maria also explore in Silent Hill 2. While here, Heather finds a poster that advertises Heaven's Night featuring one of the dancers named Lady Maria, a direct reference to Maria from Silent Hill 2, who's known for also having an occupation at Heaven's Night as a dancer. There is an optional side quest that sees Heather interacting with various letters that are left around Brookhaven Hospital, left by a secret admirer named Stanley Coleman, a person who was previously administrated to Brookhaven Hospital who suffered from a psychological disorder. He is seen to have a compulsive and obsessive desire towards Heather, by showering her with affection and the need to express his romantic and sexual tendencies as a means of displaying his love for her. This is seen in the aforementioned letters he leaves for her, or the doll that accompanies the letters. It's unknown if Stanley was a spirit produced by the town of Silent Hill, as spirits were previously mentioned in one of the articles in the subway, or if Stanley was a manifestation born from Heather's subconscious that personified one of her many fears, which seen here could be implied that she has a fear of stalkers that prey on her. In room S1, on the 3rd floor of Brookhaven Hospital, you can find a magazine article that makes a reference to Maria with a picture of her render on the front cover. Furthermore, in the same magazine article, titled Hope House, details a report and documentation of the Silent Hill Hope House Orphanage, run by a charity organization which expresses efforts in hopes of adopting less fortunate children and taking them in to take care of them. However, it's revealed that the organization behind the scenes is run by the religious cult, the Order, forcing upon children their religious practices, which eventually leads them to enforce those values on others. What's important about this orphanage is that it would be crucial in the development of one of the orphans who was there for a time, Walter Sullivan, the main antagonist of Silent Hill 4, possibly referencing Dahlia Gillespie, where she would go on to teach him about the 21 Sacraments, a ritual that requires a host to kill 21 victims, including themselves, to seek out what they desire the most. This desire is to wake his mother, who he wishes to see once again, ever since he was abandoned by her in his adolescence. This would serve as the motivation that kicks off the events of Silent Hill 4. In Silent Hill 4, you play as Henry Townsend, the main protagonist who eventually stumbles upon this same orphanage, although the name has been changed from Hope House to Wish House Orphanage. The author of the article, Joseph Scriber, would also serve a role in Silent Hill 4 as one of the ghosts that used to occupy room 302, before he was eventually killed due to unknown causes. In the Otherworld Brookhaven Hospital, on the 3rd floor, there is a room that Heather can find and enter. In this room, there is a noticeably large and massive mirror that sits on the wall, allowing Heather to see all of herself. If you choose to stay in this room, the room will slowly become contorted and corrupted, and red, black-like veins that covers the floors, walls, ceiling, and finally Heather herself on the opposite side of the mirror. Over time, if you choose to stay in the room, Heather will finally be consumed by the red-black-like veins, leading to her dying and the player getting the game over. The mirror room is likely used as a visual imagery to express one of the many fears Heather exhibits throughout her story. One of these is having the fear of mirrors, which I talked about previously. It's an allegory that expresses fears that, in this context, a woman in their adolescent teenage years may have, which derives from their insecurities and fears that show their flaws, but in a way, humanizes them. At the entrance of Lakeside Amusement Park, you can find the popular mascot, Robbie the Rabbit, an in-universe mascot that is closely associated with the Lakeside Amusement Park. While this is quite evident, given the mascot's reputation, Robbie the Rabbit actually isn't the only mascot that is associated with Lakeside Amusement Park. If we were to go to the souvenir shop, we can find a flyer inside that shows 3 other mascot characters. These characters are Kathy the Kitty, Huey the Horse, and Don the Duck. When inside the carousel, you come to find the memory of Alessa, a manifestation that represents Alessa Gillespie, the other half of Cheryl Mason, that has negative, traumatic, and dark emotions that are memories of her past life that symbolize her pain and suffering, which is tied back to Heather Mason, the reincarnation of Alessa Gillespie and Cheryl Mason. This confrontation leads to a boss fight where Heather is forced to kill the memory of Alessa. At some point during this boss fight, there would have been an unused animation where we see the memory of Alessa sitting atop on one of the horses in the carousel. However, this unused animation of memory of Alessa would be cut for unknown reasons. In one of the rooms of the church, you can find a whiteboard along with a couple of foldable chairs that are scattered across the room earlier on. If you were to backtrack later on after exploring the church, you could find a couple of enemies that you can kill. After killing the enemies, you can wait in the room that has been corrupted to slowly dissipate into red circles that form throughout the room. Before the final boss fight with God, you can find a large fan that is behind a grated fence covered in blood. This is linked back to a similar looking fan you could find in Silent Hill 1 when exploring the Otherworld Midwich Elementary School as Harry Mason. There is technically a 4th ending you can acquire that can be perceived as the bad ending. To do this, you need to arrive at the chapel and let the cutscene between Heather and Claudia play out, which results in Heather taking out her pendant necklace that Harry Mason gives to her as a gift. The pendant is revealed to store a red liquid called a Glowfidus, used to dispel demonic forces and grant supernatural immunity to the user who drinks the liquid, which we also see Heather ingest the liquid to abort the unborn fetus that is God growing inside her. However, instead of interacting with the pendant to expel the fetus, walk up to Claudia and use any weapon to attack her. Upon attacking Claudia without taking the Aglophitus, Heather reacts violently to the fetus inside her, which is later conceived off-screen and born, resulting in the birth of God, seeing Claudia succeed in her plans, and Heather presumably dying. After completing Silent Hill 3 for the first time, you get the option in the main menu titled Extra Costume. This option gives you access to the typewriter, which is used to write a certain key code specifically for a costume you can unlock. For example, the Transient's costume has a code titled Shogyo Mujio. The Royal Flush costume has a code that is under binary code, which comes out to 01_03_08_11_12. And the God of Thunder costume has a code that is titled Gangster Girl. Alternatively, these costumes don't necessarily have to be accessed by codes, and instead can be unlocked by completing specific challenges in-game. In total, there are 26 unlockable costumes for Heather, at least on the PS2 version. The PS2 version has 13 exclusive outfits that are unique to Heather, as they are under partnership with gaming media news outlets such as IGN or Game Informer. On the PC version or HD collection, there are only 12 that are unlockable. The Heather Beam is an unlockable weapon that is accomplished by performing 333 kills on the monsters throughout multiple playthroughs. This is only accessible without a weapon equipped. The Heather Beam functions as a heat-seeking projectile that locks onto enemies, where we see Heather using telekinesis to fire lasers at the enemies to perform damage. The Sexy Beam is an upgraded variant of the Heather Beam. This is accessible when the Princess Heart costume is unlocked and when no other weapon is equipped. It functions the same as the standard Heather Beam, albeit it offers a stronger damage output towards enemies. Although, when used for a long time, Heather becomes exhausted and needs to rejuvenate her stamina. There is the possibility of seeing a hidden, unlockable costume specifically for Douglas Cartland, where we can see him only wearing his shoes, underwear, coat, tie, and his fedora. He comically wears no pants or shirt. This is only unlocked by requiring the player to perform a specific code, known as the Konami code. Upon beating the game on hard difficulty, you can unlock the health bar. This allows the player to see a yellow bar that displays their health and a green bar that displays their stamina. A purple bar only shows when you are knocked down or grabbed by an enemy. A variant of the submachine gun called the Unlimited submachine gun offers unlimited ammunition to use on enemies, without ever having to reload. This is unlocked upon defeating the final boss with only a melee weapon. Similar to the Unlimited submachine gun, the flamethrower offers an unlimited supply of flamethrower fuel to burn enemies without any repercussions. This is unlocked with more kills using firearms rather than melee combat, but can be unlocked on your second playthrough. The Beam Saber is essentially a green lightsaber sword that is a powerful melee weapon that offers immense damage to enemies. It's unlocked with more melee kills rather than firearm kills. However, can also be unlocked on your second playthrough. In Heather's apartment, there was originally supposed to be a displayed picture frame of both Harry and Heather Mason on the wall of the living room. The description of the picture frame reads, "It's of Dad and me at Christmas. Looking at this makes me want to try even harder. I can't lose. They killed my dad, and they have to pay for it." At some point in the sewers, you would have had to access a pair of batteries. As to how these batteries would have functioned, it's not known. However, it's speculated that this could have been a scrapped gameplay mechanic that was used to recharge Heather's pocket flashlight. There's an unused track in the game files that doesn't have a title. If you were to take a listen, it sounds very reminiscent of a game results screen that was initially considered, but scrapped entirely. This is supposedly a remixed version of the results theme from Silent Hill 1. Originally, on the third floor of the Hilltop Center, the player would have had an 80% chance of hearing a baby scream, similar to the baby scream heard at the beginning of the game when Heather's on the roller coaster track. However, the baby scream heard here is much more disturbing and unpleasant to hear, given the themes of forced impregnation that is centered around Heather. Before I play this unused baby scream, I do want to give a fair warning that viewer discretion is advised if easily disturbed or easily frightened by sounds. Please skip to this timestamp here if you wish to avoid this entry. And that is all, the secrets and Easter eggs of Silent Hill 3. It is by far one of the most layered and in-depth in terms of content that it has to offer the player, but I hope you enjoyed this deep dive into Silent Hill 3 and learned something new. If there's anything I potentially missed, please feel free to let me know in the comment section below. Anyways, that's me. Thank you for watching, please have a great day, stay safe, and goodbye.